This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The Supreme Court is letting the Trump administration strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
After a phone call with Putin, President Trump says negotiations for a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire will begin. I'm Sue Aller.
A federal judge is blocking the dismantling of the U.S. Institute of Peace. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Legislation aimed at explicit imagery signed into law. I'm Clayton Neville.
Over 100,000 New Jersey Transit rail passengers will have access to transportation again. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
The CEO of CBS News says she's quitting. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Less than 3 weeks after he was released from an immigration jail, Palestinian activist Mohsen Madawi graduated from Columbia University. I'm Ed Donahue.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The Supreme Court will allow the Trump administration to strip legal protections from some Venezuelans. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports the ruling opens the door for more deportations.
The Supreme Court is letting the Trump administration strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans, potentially exposing them to deportation. That puts on hold a federal judge's ruling that had kept in place the Venezuelans' protected status, which allows people already in the U.S. to stay legally because their native countries are deemed unsafe. This case is the latest in a string of emergency appeals the administration made to the High Court, many related to immigration. Last week, the government asked the justices to let it end humanitarian parole for hundreds of thousands of people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, setting them up for potential deportation. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump holds an hours-long phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Correspondent Sue Aller reports the war in Ukraine was, of course, at the center of that conversation.
In their third phone conversation since taking office in January, President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a 2-hour call, described by Trump as excellent.
There's a good chance we can get this done. I believe Putin wants to do it.
Trump posted on Truth Social that Russia and Ukraine should immediately begin negotiations on a ceasefire to end the war. Putin, in a follow-up statement, said Russia is ready to work with Ukraine on a potential peace framework, while emphasizing Russia's focus on eliminating the root causes of the crisis. Trump also spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky both before and after the call.
Our side, we really want to finish this war. I'm not sure that Russia is ready, and we don't trust them.
The Vatican has expressed interest in hosting peace negotiations.
I think it would be great to have it at the Vatican. Maybe it would have some extra significance.
Trade was another topic, with Trump noting Russia's interest in large-scale trade with the U.S. once the war ends, suggesting there is a tremendous opportunity for economic growth. I'm Sue Aller.
A loss in court for the Trump administration, as correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports. A judge has ruled against blocking the closure of a peace institute.
The judge ruled that the think tank was taken over by blunt force, saying that President Donald Trump had second-guessed the judgment of Congress and President Ronald Reagan, who created the institute 40 years ago. The first attempt by Doge to take over the headquarters led to a standoff. Members of Musk's Doge group returned days later with the FBI and Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police to help them gain entry. The plaintiffs argue that the firing of the institute's board members do not meet any of the steps required by law, and that the moves also did not go before any of the 4 congressional committees that have oversight of the institute. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better with Sleep Number. Now, during the Memorial Day sale, all smart beds and bases are on sale, plus free home delivery, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. When we return on America in the Morning, new court ruling could affect what you're posting online after these messages. America in the Morning continues with the Tuesday forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A powerful storm system will continue on an eastward path through the central U.S. and expand eastward into parts of the southeast into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. This system will have more severe thunderstorms today during the afternoon hours especially, and meaningful impacts could be as far north as southeast Iowa into southwest Pennsylvania and as far south as easternmost Texas into northern Georgia and North Carolina. Thunderstorms will have the potential for drenching rain, damaging winds, hail, and even tornadoes. The heart of the area through southeast Missouri, eastern Arkansas, and then through Kentucky and Tennessee will see the highest risk for these damaging storms. This same system will also cause showers to develop as far east as Virginia into southern Michigan, with a steadier rain through northern Illinois, Wisconsin, and westward to Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas. This rain, along with the clouds, will provide a generally cool air mass and a cool day overall, with a sharp contrast from the record highs set last week. We'll have highs in the low 40s to low 50s, and this is close to 20 degrees below the historical average. Meanwhile, a storm holding nearly stationary off the northeast coast will continue to rotate clouds through a good part of New England today with a couple of showers. There will also be on the cooler side with highs in the 50s and 60s, and this cool weather will extend into New York and Pennsylvania, though there will be a little bit more sunshine there. And another system in the northwest will produce showers and thunderstorms from Washington and Oregon into Idaho and Montana, as well as Wyoming. That's the weather across America. It'll be windy and quite cool today in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with plenty of clouds, periods of rain, and a high around 50. Athens, Georgia will have abundant sunshine today and a warmer afternoon with a high of 89. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Trump signs legislation aimed at computer-generated videos online. Correspondent Clayton Neville explains.
First Lady Melania Trump was on hand as President Trump announced the signing of the Take It Down Act, which bans publishing non-consensual explicit images and videos that are computer-generated and that are authentic.
This legislation is a powerful step forward in our efforts to ensure that every American, especially young people, can feel better protected from their image or identity being abused.
The law makes publishing the banned content illegal and comes with mandatory restitution and possible jail time.
It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place.
President Trump says the bill also goes after people who threaten to use the images.
They take horrible pictures and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures and they post it without consent.
The bill requires websites to remove the imagery after being asked to by a victim within 48 hours. I'm Clayton Neville.
New Jersey transit workers have reached a deal to bring an end to their strike. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports the main sticking point of the negotiations was a pay increase.
Over 100,000 New Jersey Transit rail passengers in the state and those traveling to New York City will have access to transportation again early Tuesday. New Jersey Transit CEO Chris Caleri thanked the union for negotiating in good faith. The walkout began on Friday after New Jersey Transit failed to reach an agreement with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen over a wage increase. Tom Haas, the union's general chairman at New Jersey Transit, did not give exact details of the deal, but said the parties had reached an agreement to boost hourly wage beyond the proposal rejected by members last month. During the strike on Friday, he said,
"This is not an easy job to get. It's not an easy job to do. It's high stress. It's long hours. We're working nights, weekends, holidays, missing lots of occasions with our families."
The deal will now be submitted for a ratification vote by the National Union and would then require a vote from the New Jersey Transit Board. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
Trump chides Walmart pricing when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. With how performance was on Wall Street yesterday, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after the markets finished in the green yesterday, but barely. The S&P and the NASDAQ eked out single-digit gains. The Dow was up 130 points. Wall Street shook off the U.S. credit downgrade by Moody's. J.P. Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon said at his company's investor meeting yesterday, the markets are too complacent with the Trump tariffs. He expects S&P 500 earnings growth to collapse. Walmart warned last week higher prices are coming because of the Trump tariffs. President Trump posted over the weekend that Walmart should eat those tariffs, meaning the president doesn't want Walmart to pass them on to consumers.
I think, unfortunately, it is fairly inevitable that you are going to have to see price increases come through on at least some of the items. Now, it may not be super evident to us as consumers exactly where or how, because as an example that I gave on the Today Show this weekend, if Walmart sells, let's say, $5 T-shirts, they want to keep that product at $5, even if it has a 30% tariff applied on China, because that's sort of a signature item, right? So they might take that extra tariff amount and put it onto another product. Unfortunately, I think price increases are inevitable. If Walmart cannot absorb all of it, who can?
CNBC's Courtney Reagan. Here we go again with mortgage rates popping higher. They topped 7% yesterday, the highest since President Trump announced the tariffs.
The average rate on the 30-year fix went back over 7%, 7.04 to be exact, according to Mortgage News Daily. That is the highest rate since April 11th. It did fall back slightly along with bond yields this afternoon to 6.99%, but still higher than it was on Friday. Rates began rising sharply at the start of April after President Trump announced wide-ranging tariffs. We did see a pullback from buyers in April.
CNBC's Diana Olick. Darden restaurants closing about 15 underperforming Bahama Breeze locations. That's about a third of that chain. Darden also owns Olive Garden and Longhorn Steakhouse. Sesame Street will stream on Netflix with a new deal that keeps the popular children's show available. It'll also air on PBS at the same time, but the government has threatened to pull funding from public broadcasting. New and past episodes will be available on Netflix worldwide. No premiere date yet. A baseball used in the 1986 World Series between the New York Mets and Boston Red Sox just sold for $183,000 at auction. The ball was used by Jesse Orozco to strike out Marty Barrett to win the Fall Classic. On today's watch list, we get earnings from a biggie, Home Depot. McDonald's holds its annual shareholder meeting today. The NBA Conference Finals tip off tonight. Timberwolves and Thunder.
There's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Tuesday Business. And as long as we're tossing out some call letters, how about the CBS News executive? Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on a surprise exit.
Wendy McMahon is stepping down as the network's parent company considers settling a lawsuit with President Donald Trump over 60 Minutes. McMahon said in an email message to staff that it's become clear that she and the company don't agree on a path forward. McMahon has made it clear that she doesn't want to settle with Trump, just like former 60 Minutes executive producer Bill Owens, who announced his resignation last month. Trump is reportedly in talks with Paramount Global over his lawsuit, claiming 60 Minutes edited an interview with Kamala Harris to benefit her. I'm Haya Panjwani.
From the presidency to the palette, with paintings on display. That's When America in the Morning continues after these messages. As America in the Morning continues, a student at Columbia University who was detained and later released by ICE was able to walk across the graduation stage to receive their diploma. Correspondent Ed Donahue has that story.
Less than 3 weeks after he was released from an immigration jail, Palestinian activist Mohsen Madawi graduated from Columbia University. Madawi was cheered by fellow graduates as he accepted his diploma. He told the AP he has mixed emotions.
Trump's administration wanted to rob me from this opportunity. They wanted me to be in a prison, in prison's clothes, to not have education and to not have joy or celebration.
Madawi was detained last month during a citizenship interview in Vermont, part of the widening federal crackdown on pro-Palestinian activists. It was a bittersweet return to Columbia.
The senior administration that is selling the soul of this university to the Trump's administration, participating in the destruction and the degradation of our democracy.
After graduation, there was a vigil for classmate Mahmoud Khalil, who remains in federal custody. I'm Ed Donahue.
Former presidents have had a unique range of talents. Theodore Roosevelt was a sportsman. James Garfield could write in Greek while simultaneously speaking in German. John F. Kennedy, a skilled skier. And that brings us to a new art exhibit at the George W. Bush Presidential Center. Correspondent Jennifer King reports the display showcases the former president's paintings.
A few years after his presidency, George W. Bush took up oil painting and has depicted world leaders, veterans, immigrants, and even dogs and cats. Teresa Lendling is the director of the Presidential Museum.
He was inspired to paint by Winston Churchill after his presidency.
An exhibit that opened at his presidential library features 35 never-before-seen works with vibrant scenes close to home, people enjoying the Bush Center and its gardens, and scenes from student life on the campus of Southern Methodist University in Dallas.
It's in a way a love letter to the campus of SMU.
One of the paintings shows the center's opening in 2013 when President Obama and all of the still living former presidents posed in front of the new building. I'm Jennifer King.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
A win for the Trump administration surrounding deportations. I'm Clayton Neville.
President Trump says Russia and Ukraine are ready to talk about a ceasefire. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump will try to help House Republicans reach a consensus on his one big beautiful bill. I'm John Stolness in Washington.
Bipartisan bill makes deepfake intimate images illegal. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Sesame Street finds a new home in the streaming world. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to strip legal protections from hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans, exposing them to possible deportation. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
With the ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court, the Trump administration says deportations will start right away.
That'll happen immediately. This administration doesn't rest on their laurels. We get going.
Tricia McLaughlin with the Department of Homeland Security was on Fox News and touted the nearly unanimous decision by the High Court.
It's pretty unusual for the Supreme Court to really rule 8-1, and especially in the Trump administration's favor. But I will say that this is such a win for the American people. What this program did was really exploit the legal immigration system. We talk a lot about how Biden broke the border, but he also broke the legal immigration system.
In 2021, DHS under the Biden administration designated Venezuela as a country whose nationals in America were eligible to live and work here under the Temporary Protected Status Program. McLaughlin told Fox News that helped break an immigration system.
MS-13 gang members, Tren de Aragua, known terrorists, convicted murderers, human rights abusers, they all came in using this parole program. And we really have to not just look at the border, but also our legal immigration protocols and making sure we reinstitute integrity into them and that we're actually vetting the people who are coming into this country.
The court's order pauses a ruling from a federal judge in California that kept in place temporary protected status for the Venezuelans. The justices, though, didn't expand on their decision. I'm Clayton Neville.
In a phone call with Vladimir Putin, Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports President Trump says Russia and Ukraine will immediately start ceasefire talks.
The president says he spent more than 2 hours on the phone with Vladimir Putin. In his words, an excellent call.
And I think some progress has been made.
Saying earlier the two nations will immediately start truce negotiations. Putin says Russia's ready to keep talking about an end to the war, but says both sides need to find acceptable compromises, and Moscow will propose a memo outlining a possible future peace treaty.
Russia is Russia.
Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky says when Moscow wants something,
they want everything.
And he'll wait to see what it proposes.
Our side, we really want to finish this war. I'm not sure that Russia is ready, and we don't trust them.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
As House Republicans attempt to reach a consensus over the so-called Big Beautiful Tax and Spending Bill, President Trump will visit Capitol Hill to try and get it across the finish line. Correspondent John Stolnis has more from Washington.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says the plan remains to try and hold a vote Thursday on the legislation that features the guts of the agenda the president wants to push forward for his second term. But there are still holdouts among some Republicans, like Congressman Ralph Norman, who is concerned about the price tag, speaking here on Real America's Voice.
There's some great things in the bill, like the tax cuts, but the cancer in this country is spending more than we make. And I'm sorry, we've got to get on a diet.
Speaker Johnson told reporters yesterday it's understandable a large spending bill like this would take time.
This is a consensus-building operation. It's been a bottom-up process. That was what everybody wanted. That's what we've delivered. And we're almost there. And I'm very optimistic that we will find the right equilibrium point to get this bill delivered. It's going to be a big thing.
The president will visit House Republicans later today to press the issue. Speaker Johnson says he believes they're close.
This is arguably the largest and most comprehensive piece of legislation that Congress has worked on in probably generations. One of the most in the history of the country. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of preferences and ideas on how to handle all that.
Disagreements remain on a cap on the state and local tax deductions known as SALT, Medicaid work requirements, as well as other items. At least 4 conservative holdouts have said they're not prepared to vote for it as of yet. Johnson understands there will be no Democratic support. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries explains why.
Republicans are trying to jam this big, ugly bill down the throats of the American people, which will take away health care. And because of the fact that almost 14 million people will lose their ability to access health care, people will die.
The House Rules Committee will get the legislation at 1 a.m. Wednesday, but 2 fiscal hawks, Norman and Chip Roy, sit on that committee and could stop it. If it passes, a vote will be teed up for Thursday before Congress leaves for the Memorial Day recess. Any bill would still need to pass the Senate, with any changes there having to get House approval as well. John Stolnis, Washington.
VP Pence ruffles some feathers in North Carolina. And update on that Mexican tall ship disaster when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Former Vice President Mike Pence spoke at an event in North Carolina. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports he was critical of President Trump's tariff policies.
Former Vice President Mike Pence is praising congressional Republicans for pushing ahead with President Donald Trump's bill of tax breaks and spending cuts, saying,
I think there should be no higher domestic priority than making the Trump-Pence tax cuts permanent.
3 days ago, Moody's Ratings mentioned the 2017 tax cuts as it stripped the U.S. government of its top credit rating, citing the inability of policymakers to rein in debt.
Our credit rating in Moody's being downgraded is one more warning light flashing that we have to come to terms with our national debt.
Pence also had strong words against pursuing wide-ranging tariffs, saying that he believes the policy will harm American consumers and workers. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Correspondent Mike Sissick has the latest from the courtroom in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial.
After a week of lurid testimony, prosecutors at Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial focused Monday on his violent, controlling tendencies and the employees they say he used to keep his behavior hush-hush. Singer Dawn Richard told jurors that she saw Combs frequently punching, kicking, slapping, and dragging longtime girlfriend Cassie Ventura. Richard's testimony followed Cassie's harrowing 4 days on the witness stand. Richard said Combs' staff saw abuse but didn't do anything. Cassie's former friend and roommate, Carrie Morgan, said Combs once turned his rage on her. Morgan told jurors she was choked and hit in the head with a wooden hanger by the hip-hop mogul. Combs' former personal assistant recalled a Combs lieutenant pointing to a picture of Combs and saying, "This is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve him." He recalled Combs saying he saw Cassie as very moldable and, "I got her right where I want her." Combs has pleaded not guilty. Testimony resumes Tuesday. In court in Manhattan, I'm Mike Sisak.
The state of Indiana will carry out its first death row execution since 2009. Correspondent Jennifer King reports the inmate was convicted in the shooting death of a police officer.
Benjamin Ritchie is scheduled to be executed by lethal injection early Tuesday at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. He was convicted in the 2000 shooting of Beech Grove police officer Bill Toney. Indiana resumed executions in December after a 15-year hiatus due to difficulty obtaining lethal injection drugs. Ritchie was 20 years old and on probation from a burglary conviction when he and others stole a van. During a pursuant foot chase, he fired 4 shots at Officer Toney, killing him. His attorneys argued that Ritchie suffered brain damage from his mother's drug and alcohol abuse and has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. At the time of his sentencing, Ritchie smiled and laughed at the officer's widow, but later told a parole board he regretted his actions, saying that punk kid should have just kept his mouth shut. Indiana is one of 2 states, along with Wyoming, that bars media witnesses as a death penalty is administered. I'm Jennifer King.
Ford issues a recall for its vehicles over potentially faulty brakes. Details from correspondent Donna Warder.
Ford is recalling close to 274,000 Expeditions and Navigators because the brakes may stop working. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says in documents that the front brake lines in some Expeditions and Navigators made from 2022 to 2024 may come in contact with the engine air cleaner outlet pipe because of an installation defect. That can cause brake fluid to leak and a loss of brake function. Ford is not aware of any accidents or injuries related to the recall. Federal safety officials say affected vehicles may require drivers to apply more pressure to the brake. I'm Donna Warder.
The investigation continues into the circumstances that led to the deadly ship collision with the Brooklyn Bridge. Meantime, correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the ship's crew has returned to Mexico.
The Mexican Navy tall ship that struck the Brooklyn Bridge was less than 5 minutes into its trip before its masts crashed into the historic bridge. At least 19 of the ship's 277 sailors needed medical treatment. 2 crew members were killed. It's unclear whether a mechanical problem, weather, or other issues played a role in the crash. But National Transportation Safety Board member Michael Graham says there's been no major damage done to the Brooklyn Bridge.
They have affirmed at this point that there is no significant structural damage to the load-bearing elements of the bridge. There is some damage on one of the travelers, which they use to access and survey the bridge at this point, but nothing structural from the bridge is an issue at this point.
The vessel arrived in New York on May 13th as part of a global goodwill tour. It was next bound for Iceland. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The Russian government labels Amnesty International as an undesirable organization. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports that label makes it a criminal offense to interact with the group.
The decision by the Russian Prosecutor General's office, announced in an online statement, is the latest in the unrelenting crackdown on Kremlin critics, journalists and activists that intensified to unprecedented levels after Moscow invaded Ukraine in February 2022. The designation means that the international human rights group must stop any work in Russia. Those cooperating with it face prosecution, including if anyone shares Amnesty International's reports on social media. The organisation has not immediately commented on the move. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
President Trump signs a bill with bipartisan support banning revenge deepfake content. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
Yesterday, President Trump signed the Take It Down Act, a bipartisan bill that enacts stricter penalties for the distribution of non-consensual intimate imagery. These deepfakes, usually created by artificial intelligence, are often used to generate intimate images for revenge purposes. Those critical of the measure said that this addresses both real and artificial intelligence-generated imagery, and the language is too broad. The bill that goes into effect immediately was co-sponsored by Senator Ted Cruz, Republican, and Senator Amy Klobuchar, the Democrat from Minnesota, and later gained support of First Lady Melania Trump. The law makes it illegal to knowingly publish or threaten to publish intimate images without a person's consent, including AI-created deepfakes. It also requires websites and social media companies to remove such material within 48 hours of notice. For more tech news, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning's Robert Workman has a check of Tuesday sports.
Baseball last night, the Marlins trimmed the Cubs 8-7. Jesus Sanchez hit a leadoff homer and a walk-off two-run triple. Brewers edged the Orioles 5-4. William Contreras capped a 4-for-4 night with a tie-breaking RBI single in the 8th for manager Pat Murphy.
He wasn't just good. He was great all the way through. Five quality at-bats. I don't know how many quality at-bats he's had in the last 12, but it's been the William Contreras that is in the top 5 of the MVP voting, last year.
Baltimore has now lost 7 straight. Angels sent the A's to their 6th loss in a row, 4-3. Taylor Ward hit a 2-run tater. Astros shaded the Rays 4-3 on Jake Meyers' solo shot in the 7th. Phillies hit 3 homers and flattened the Rockies 9-3. One of those came off the bat of Kyle Schwarber. Number 300 of his career went 466 feet off the facade of the 3rd deck at Coors Field. Reds scuttled the Pirates 7-1 for their 5th straight win. Diamondbacks clocked the Dodgers 9-5. Brandon Pfaadt went 6 innings to become the first 7-game winner in the majors this year, despite giving up Shohei Ohtani's league-leading 17th home run. Julio Rodriguez hit a grand slam to lead the Mariners over the White Sox 5-1. Red Sox topped the Mets 3-1. Royals beat the Giants 3-1, 7 shutout innings for Chris Bubich. Cardinals tamed the Tigers 11-4. Sonny Gray struck out 11 on a rainy night against the team with the best record in baseball. St. Louis has won 13 of 15. And the Guardians-Twins game was suspended after a second rain delay. They'll pick it up this evening in the 4th inning with Minnesota up 2-1, then play the regularly scheduled game right after. It was a night off in the playoffs in the NHL and NBA. Conference finals begin tonight in the East on the ice. The defending champion Florida Panthers will be at the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 1 in the West is tomorrow night with the Edmonton Oilers at the Dallas Stars. On the hardwood tonight in the West, it's the top-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder at home for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Game 1 in the East is tomorrow night in New York as the Indiana Pacers visit the Knicks. One of those 4 teams will become the 7th different NBA champion in as many seasons. That's never happened in NBA history. That's Tuesday Sports.
Staring at the prospect of unemployment, Ernie and Bert find a new employer when America in the Morning continues after these messages. TV's Sesame Street will now be sponsored by the letter N. Entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr has the story.
Later this year, the way to Sesame Street will include a detour through a Netflix account. Last year, Warner Brothers Discovery chose not to renew the beloved children's television program after its 55th season. This is because the Max streaming service plans to pivot from children's programming to more adult content as it returns to the HBO Max brand. Ernie, Bert, Big Bird, Oscar, Elmo, and the rest of the gang on Sesame Street were in limbo, but a new streaming service has picked them up. On Monday, streaming giant Netflix enlisted long-term Sesame Street resident Cookie Monster to make an announcement on social media.
Whoa.
Let me translate for you. Later this year, a reimagined 56th season will stream on the service as well as be broadcast in the U.S. on PBS stations and PBS Kids digital platforms. Netflix will also make 90 hours of the previous episodes available worldwide. As part of its ongoing deal, Warner Brothers Discovery will continue to license older episodes through 2027. Netflix will revamp the episodes to center on an 11-minute story designed to maximize character-driven humor and heart. Sesame Street joins Peppa Pig as high-profile children's programming on Netflix. Both titles have the ability to expand from streaming content to online games.
Welcome to the world of Peppa Pig!
The kid-safe mobile game, The World of Peppa Pig, is currently available. I'm Kevin Carr.
Finally, today, some of us can thank 2 men for a good portion of our wardrobe. It was on this date in 1873 that Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis received a patent for blue jeans. America in the Morning for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.